Welcome to Around the Bases, the pop culture and sports podcast with your host,
Charlie Seymour.
and I'm Tim Sternberg, and we are just on the edge of a Survivor finale. And just a heads up to all of you out there, there will be spoilers ahead. If you have not seen the Survivor finale, what are you doing? There will be spoilers. I do want to take a moment real quick before we get into Survivor, a little personal message, and say a very happy birthday to my wife, Erica, who is celebrating her birthday on Thursday. If you're listening to this on the 23rd, happy birthday, Erica.
Hey, happy birthday.
It's going to be a great day. Dude, well, first of all, like I was ahead of you a little bit, and I was like, OMG. I think you get why I said OMG, right?
I do.
Didn't
I understand.
expect it. I was like, wow. And so, okay, we'll start.
Before getting into any votes, the first thing I would just want to know is, for you, now that you hadn't seen the last bunch of seasons and you're returning, how did you feel about I know I explained to you that it gets down to the final four instead of three, and then they have it. How did you think the setup and that all went to start?
I think it adds a new twist to the show. I think it's interesting. I will say, we had a discussion I don't even know. This is episode 16, by the way. Congratulations, buddy. But we had a discussion many episodes ago about the idea that added fire competition is a way for the player to potentially showcase themselves to the
Another
jury.
resume booster.
You said that, and when watching it, I'm like, I get what I had that your thought in my head.
Now you see why.
Dude, I mean, yeah, I could see it. And honestly, it makes it more interesting to me. There's a lot of strategy that's involved, kind of similar to the last Had a Household for Big Brother. You know how that last Had a Household decides who goes with them to the final two?
Mm-hmm.
It's a little similar in that there's strategy involved in who you're going to pick to sit next to you and who you're going to pair to do fire. And there's pluses and minuses to that decision. If you're going to pair up two very strong players, you're giving them potentially a huge line item, like you said, on that resume.
Yeah. See, and then that's where a lot of them were like, if we want to get people out that are a good chance to win, you might want to even get them out before the fire, because once you get down to it, you never know. So now here's where I think my namesake slightly lost it, where I think that Liz was so bad at making fire that the way I would have looked at it is, if you can't beat her in fire, you don't deserve to win. Secondly, if it's going to be that close and every vote counts, I really think that last decision was the difference maker.
I agree with you. You saw, like, to the editing leading up to the fire moment, right? You basically knew as a viewer, okay, Liz is going, even before Ben told her, it's like Liz is going to fire. She were talking about her joints and how, she has issues with it. And so you kind of knew. And to backtrack, Ben wins the final immunity challenge. Shocker. Like, there we go.
Yeah.
Comes out of nowhere.
Pulls a rabbit out of the hat.
He likes the Plinko, apparently. A little nods, his Price is Right. That
was a fun challenge, wasn't it?
It was fun.
Charlie, a lot of moving parts.
Your namesake really struggled with the idea of catching that ball.
Yeah. I think he underestimated how quickly it goes through the last few of them.
Yeah, and he was concentrating. And it's a tricky challenge, because you have to concentrate on what you're doing at the puzzle, but also in the back of your head, worry about a ball falling down. And it's like using the brain.
Arguably that's most important, because the time delay and penalty is what did it in for a bunch of them.
You would almost have to formulate, and I think this is what Ben did well. And I think Ben's experience as a musician came into play here, because being a musician is all about beat and
keeping time.
Yeah, and I think it helped him. I think it was a challenge right up his alley. I was happy to see him win one, although I knew he didn't stand a chance in heaven to win the game. There's just
And
nothing on his resume.
there's something else I'd like to ask. In Ben's spot, what did you think that people were so scared of Liz for, as she has to be in fire? Do
Yeah,
people really think she was gonna get more votes than Kenzie or Charlie?
so I think
I
her
was a little
outburst
surprised by that.
alone. Yeah, I agree with you. I think her outburst alone on the whole, Applebee's thing, I think alone was enough to say, and the idea that she already has the money and she's a millionaire, a self-proclaimed millionaire, as she said, all negatives. I mean, obviously they ended up picking the eventual person who wins, and we'll get there in a minute because of her, which partly what she said. So I agree. I think honestly, I would have put those two strongest people against each other for
Right?
fire. I
And
would have
then
put
take out one of your
Charlie,
competition,
right, and he would have been doing Charlie a favor if Charlie had beat Kenzie.
especially
Um,
if you're going at it with the mindset of you want someone to knock out Liz. Someone is going to get a resume boost regardless. So why not take out a stronger competitor? That's the way
yeah,
I saw it. But
absolutely. I agree with you. We were both similarly thinking. I was shocked. Like when he said, "Okay, well, Liz, you're going to fire." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? That's like putting the weakest link up against like Kenzie, and both Kenzie and Charlie were potentially strong players, in my opinion, for the jury. Why wouldn't you just pair them up against each other? And if either way, Ben didn't stand a chance because whoever won the fire challenge was going to beat him at least. Not
yeah,
maybe not
I
Charlie or
felt pretty
whatever.
strongly that Ben was in third.
Yeah. Yeah. And so and on Survivor, third gets
And he
nothing.
probably only got third because he won the last immunity. He arguably could have been fourth too.
I think so. I think it was interchangeable. I saw some things pre-show about there was odds, and most of the odds actually gave it to Maria to win, and as it was going into the
And then that's
final.
another thing that I wanted to touch on
Yeah.
was when there were five left. How did you feel about um, Liz helping Kenzie in the immunity challenge?
You wonder why at that point.
It's
You
because they wanted
wonder,
Maria out and they wanted someone else other than Maria to win.
but why?
So,
It
because they
just was
felt that she
weird.
had the best chance to win. And if she got one more free to four, they felt she'd beat anybody in fire. Maria, they felt pretty good about Maria's chances if she made it to four, which genuinely I agree with. Another thing I read though that is the logic behind it actually makes a lot of sense to me, but then the end result doesn't. So everyone is afraid of Maria and they think Maria's got the best chance to win, right? So they vote out Maria. But then at the end, Charlie, who arguably has the identical game as Maria, they were the number ones the whole
They
time.
were side by side.
Then
Yeah.
he also was the one that correctly won the battle head to head. So you'd think if everybody thought Maria was going to win, Charlie should have just as much, if not more, of a stake to win. And then all of a sudden, it doesn't swing that way. So either A, Maria wasn't as big of a threat that everybody thought, or everyone kind of loses a little bit because there's so much time between, by the time they vote at the end, a lot of it's, to me, I kind of think it's a little bit of recency bias. You
I
know,
agree.
they're kind of okay. Kenzie just won the fire and she won one of the last couple of immunities, so maybe they lean that way. But
I think
yeah, it's
too.
interesting.
I think what helped Kenzie to win, and mind you, I'm going to say this straight up. I think Kenzie is deserving to win. I'm not upset about
Oh
the way
yeah,
it worked out.
this isn't
Kenzie,
one of the seasons where only one person had a case to win.
Kenzie or Charlie would have been fine by me,
For
in my
sure.
opinion.
It just, if it only would have been genuinely shocking if it was Ben.
Yeah. So I think what finally did it for Kenzie was her final speech, what she said about her needing the money and starting a life. And honestly, Charlie, if I was sitting there, I probably would
Yeah.
have voted for Kenzie too.
And
Honestly,
And Jeff brought that up and asked how many people changed their mind that night, and about four hands went up, and only one of them switched to Charlie, which was Hunter. The other three switched to Kenzie. So that alone in itself could have been the difference. But then here's the thing that really, I think that we both mentioned, that's really going to be the thing that's going to stick out forever is Maria's vote. Maria didn't vote for Charlie, who was they were number one the whole time. They knew it. They pretty much had said to each other they were giving each other the vote until they had to turn on each other. And if she votes Charlie, it's 4-4. And then Ben is giving the tiebreak to Charlie. So is Charlie ever going to talk to her again? She probably, you could make a pretty good case that she cost him $1 million.
You could certainly see right after the vote how upset he was. He was certainly almost to the point where he almost didn't want to talk.
And then Jeff brought it up.
Yeah, and it took him a moment to gather his thoughts. And I must say, kudos to Charlie for being
he handled it and unbelievably well.
So well. Like, if you're gonna give somebody advice on how to address yourself and your character on TV
after a hard, devastating loss, that
is sportsmanship 101. That's without a doubt.
That's game footage you watch and emulate.
And when I saw that, I was like, "You go, dude!" I was so proud of him and what he said. But to your point about Maria, I thought that was a lousy thing that she did. And I'll tell you a couple of reasons why. Like you said, they were side by side throughout the game. And in my opinion, and we've talked about this concept before on this podcast, game should recognize game. Game should always recognize game. And she clearly had an agenda to get Charlie out because she knew Charlie was a threat. She proceeded and she failed. At that point, game should recognize game, and she should say, I'm going to follow my promises and you have my vote because, dude, you played an excellent game. And I don't understand. And to me, it kind of took away a little bit from her character because I was liking Maria. I think when she did that a little bit, it soured me a little. Like, what in the world were you doing? Like, why would you do that? And honestly, her vote, that one vote at that point wouldn't have made a difference. It still was 5. It was still 2 votes. So
no, but it was 5-3. So if you take away her vote for Kenzie,
it would have been 4.
Kenzie goes 5-4. Then he goes up 3-4, and it's 4-4. And then Ben's the deciding tiebreaker.
Yeah, wow.
And you got to imagine Ben in that scenario is voting Charlie.
Well, in Ben in that scenario, it basically saved him from an attack because I don't know, Ben would have had an issue. He loved both of them, and understandably so with Kenzie because Kenzie was
there for
kind and nice, and that's what I loved her, and I love the fact that she came off a tribe, and we need to talk about this real quick. Kenzie came off a tribe that was losing and losing and losing and losing and losing, and she made the merge. Not only made the merge, built relationships with other people to the point where she wins the game. And I think what did it for her, to go back to your initial question, that final speech that she said, when she said she needed the money for herself, and then Charlie kind of said, well, I would donate a little bit here and donate a little bit there. I think her speech won out. I mean, it's about and it's not selfishness. It's doing what's best for you, and that's why you go on a show like this, to do for you and your family and whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever in saying I need it for me. And I think wonderful. Here's a young lady who now has $1 million, well, 500, 7, whatever it is after taxes, but has a lot of money, 6 figures, that she could really do something special and have the springboard to a wonderful life. And I think that's the great thing about this show, is it will change her life. And listen, Charlie got $100,000. That's no small potatoes.
No small potatoes, as you said.
Well earned.
You're not wrong. It's not like he gets nothing. So
right, and the rest of the players will get the stipend that they would normally get. It's nowhere near $100,000.
And I like the point you brought up earlier where he handled it so well too. not only does he still got you got to think that that's gonna the way he handled it is gonna pay off down the line where maybe
I
he
think we
gets
might see him
invited
on
back for
40.
it. Yeah, 50. You mean?
I'm 50. Sorry.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. He could definitely be, or he could be on the next season of like good guys versus bad guys, and like I think the way he handled it definitely opened up some
or
future
traders.
doors or
Traders.
traders.
Um,
Yep.
I honestly think out of the cast for this season, the three that have the most chance, I think, of being on 50 would be Kenzie, Charlie, and Maria. I think those are kind of the ones that you might see coming out.
You're forgetting one, I think too.
Oh, Hunter.
Well,
Sorry.
also I think another one,
Oh, who?
Q.
Oh, Q was a
By the end of it,
character.
Q was must see TV by the end of it. So
Him and his Q skirt, yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
really
and
helped the
honestly,
online merch sales, the Q skirt. So
Q, I went up and down like a roller coaster with Q this season. I will say he garnered my respect in the end the way he voted. I must respect to him. It was not easy for him, I'm sure, to vote for Kenzie and personally. And I think when you're playing a game, if you can overlook the personal feelings that you might have, that's a big plus. That's how I play games. I don't look at it personally. It's a game, right?
yeah.
You're having fun. It's a game. And at the end, the results are the results. And I think Q handled himself well. And yeah, definitely a couple of notches there. So it's going to be interesting. I think we'll see at least one of these contestants on season 50. So we'll see. Hunter played the best game that didn't win or come in the end. I mean, I think he was amazing. But
And then obviously the most important lesson that any person took away from this season was play your idol.
oh, you see that segment that Jeff did with all the
He talked about the how it broke a record and
oh
ah
my
man.
god. Oh my god. And so what are your thoughts on Survivor 40 several?
40 several.
40 several.
They got him to say
Chalinsky.
it a couple times, but then when he was introducing it, I thought
He
for
said
sure
47.
he said seven. Yeah, I thought he'd say several, but
Um,
the preview looked interesting.
what's interesting is they probably just filmed that stuff like 2, 3 weeks ago and they just
Oh
put it
yeah,
together real quick because
yeah.
that's filming or is filmed already. They might be filming 48 now, but that filmed like very recently. It looks like an interesting cast. It's hard to gather from a little clip of what that's going to be like, but I like the diversity. I like it. We'll see how it works out. I think that's always makes an interesting game when you have people from different walks of life and different life experiences playing. I think that's what's great about these shows is to see how that mix works. And this season didn't disappoint at all. I thought it was fantastic.
And
Thank you
you
for getting
brought,
me back
of
into
course,
it.
of course. And you brought up something where I don't know if you don't have to get into it if you don't want to, but it's a potential spoiler where you said someone found some sort of Easter eggs that kind
Yes.
of gave away Kenzie winning. Now, my follow up to that was that wouldn't also already have an Easter egg in the 47 clip, right? You're
No,
talking
I didn't
more of
see it. So I'll say it. And it's interesting because I saw what I happened was I saw someone post a TikTok a couple of days ago and said that in most seasons there's been Easter eggs, and in this season they kind of changed it up a little bit, but they were able to tell. And in the opening credits for this season's Survivor, right before or after they show Kenzie's picture, there's a gold Survivor logo, and it's the only gold logo that shows up in the entire opening sequence. And
interesting.
that
That's
they
what
said
the
that was the
rumored one.
tell. Yeah.
Interesting.
So
So
if you go back
previous
and look,
ones before it would do the same, or
there were similar Easter eggs. So they go back. The Easter egg in the past, before I guess production caught on, was when they did the first meet at the mat. That they had the three groups, and they would talk to one person in each group, and inevitably in almost every season for like 5 seasons or something, one of those three people ended up being the winner of the season.
oh, interesting.
So there are things that kind of, and you and I talked, and if I didn't have a time constraint tomorrow, I would have inserted the clip into this podcast. But in the first podcast we talked about this season of Survivor, I talked about Jeff Probst having a podcast and
Saying
talking
it was a
about this being,
musical season.
and
You
he hinted
called it.
I was like, oh, Ben and
But
Charlie are going to
then,
be in the
but then, neither,
final.
but then neither of them won.
Neither
So,
of them won, but
so
still,
it's like a
I mean,
partial Easter egg.
partial Easter egg.
They
But
got second
yeah,
and third. They're on the podium. They just
on the
didn't get gold.
podium. That's right. That's right.
Hey, they still got a medal. At
Yes.
least, at least Charlie did.
Your namesake. Your namesake played a great game. You should
Third,
be
third
proud.
doesn't third doesn't get anything though, right?
No, no, I don't think so.
They get the honor of being third.
I think on Big Brother they used to. I think Big Brother they get like $25,000 third place. I think they still do actually. I don't know, but yeah, they get the honor of being third. Listen, it's an honor just to get on Survivor. I looked at that. I'm like,
Oh, absolutely.
I would actually, if life aligned. I mean, I could see myself doing that show. Believe it or not, yeah. I think, if you want to challenge yourself, I think that's the thing to go. You see, on the next season of Survivor, they have someone who's 59 years old. That's one of the
Yeah.
things I saw in the preview. I'm like, you go, sis.
And
Like,
that
that's
that
awesome.
line of "I'm 59 and I just whooped you." That was
You,
good.
yeah, yeah. So we'll see how that works. We have to wait until September, but we do have some good shows coming up. We have Big Brother that's premiering. We have there's a new show on Fox called The 1% Club, hosted by Patton Oswald. We'll get into that further, but Amazon Prime, I believe, is dropping the first episode tonight at 3 a.m. or tomorrow. So that'll be interesting to
Oh,
see. I'll try to preview
that's
it.
also an Amazon Prime one, huh?
No, that's actually a Fox show, but Amazon Prime is going to drop the first episode as a
Oh, so like
yeah,
cross marketing for each other,
I guess
or
so. Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So that should be good.
How long do you know how long that'll be available for?
I do not. I know that show was taped sometime last year in Los Angeles, which was interesting to me. They went back to LA because they've been taping overseas and whatnot. But I think it'll be
What's
it
the
looks
premise behind
interesting.
that one?
I think there are. I'm not 100%, but I think there are like survey questions, and you have to guess who the 1% of the people guessed or something. I'm not sure. There is a large audience of contestants. Is that
Interesting.
familiar?
Okay.
So and I think it's self-contained for each episode. So each episode has its contest. I'm not sure,
But hey,
but
well, you know what? We can watch the one episode preview and see what we think.
yeah, so we'll see how that goes. Speaking of Amazon Prime or Preview or Freebie or Free, whatever it is, The Goat dropped another episode. It's dropping another one tomorrow. What'd you think?
Episode 4 was it what honestly it was pretty interesting again.
Yeah,
I think they're doing a good job mixing the Big Brother living in a house social with the challenges, they're doing it. I also I gotta say I've always liked Daniel Tosh, so
he's
I'm
so
in it.
funny.
I'm in it for his quips. So
He is so funny. I love him. I do. I love him. I thought the challenge was gross in a good way. The popping of the pimples. I
yeah,
thought
that was
that
pretty
was
gross.
um Davon and Wendell kind of trying to patch things up.
How about Wendell not only already getting a little bit of take home money, but then also
Five G's.
still being safe. That was the move.
And I think it was brilliant of him to put Davon on his team because think about it. If they lost, he could kind of throw her under the bus. And if they won, she's winning by her helping because she's a good competitor. I
Mm-hmm.
think either way, it was a win-win situation. And he also builds trust with her by showing her that she's on his team. I think it was brilliantly thought out to do that. And they did.
Definitely.
They
That
won the
was
competition.
yeah. And you could tell too that he was playing to win, especially when he knew he put up gave up his immunity that he had won. So he needed to stack the deck a little bit in his favor.
Just a little bit. What'd you think of the way the episode played out?
Um, I think that I had a feeling you mentioned Easter eggs earlier. They like to kind of drop hints like that. And one of the first confessionals after they started picking the teams was Reza. It cut to him saying, I thought we were the boys team. And then when he doesn't pick me to play on his team, he's like, I kind of felt some type of way that, he could tell that he was being put at a slight disadvantage. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was looking up the actual competition because I watched it right away and my memory faded. So I'm like trying to see what happened with Reza. Was Reza the one that was voted out? Wasn't it
I,
another girl?
no, I thought, oh, wait. Did Reza had the numbers this week? That's right.
Yeah, Reza had the number. That's what I was looking. I was like,
They
I
were
wanted to
they
make
they
sure.
they kept hinting that they were not they were that they were going to be able to swing two people, but they couldn't. It was the Bravo woman went home.
Jill Zarin, right?
No, Jill was
Oh,
safe because she got the pick to
oh,
be on the
that's
team.
right.
It was the one where the week before Justin made the comment where your life is stuck to the bottle or something like that.
Terrible comment. Yeah. Oof.
She's from like below deck or something like that. She's one of the
Yeah.
characters I didn't know that well.
So she went home, and I Reza lived to fight another day, and I think the boys are a very strong chance of winning the whole thing. I mean, I don't know how they fight that. Yeah, I think the women should have stuck together last week, and I think that was their downfall. I don't think Devon is long for the game. I don't see her kind of going, and I'm
You know,
looking to.
she's to your point though. She's
She's a
good.
survivor.
She's a good competition player.
Yeah,
So
she is.
as long as she keeps getting on the right side for a couple of weeks, they just got to survive another couple of weeks. It was
Yeah.
Kristen, right?
I
Hurricane
think so.
Kristen.
Yeah. Yeah.
She
So
was gonna she was leaving quietly, and then they kind of egged her on a little bit, and then she came back and had like a second one.
yeah,
And
remember she walked up the stairs and she's like screaming at them like
yeah,
it kind of reminded me of what was that show that it was last year. Did you watch the show the one with the relatives, not No We Are Family, but the relatives hosted by the Jonas Brothers?
yeah, claim to fame.
Claim to Fame. What the first person voted out last season on Claim to Fame had like a literal meltdown. Went to the house and started. You remember that? She
I do
started
remember that.
screaming. It
Yeah.
kind of reminded me a little of that. I love Claim. By the way, Claim to Fame is coming back this summer, which I'm freaking excited about. I love that show. Yeah, we'll talk about Claim to
And I
Fame
just
this
want to
summer.
mention that Kristen was from Vanderpump Rules. I'm
Vanderpump.
mistaken. I mixed it up.
Yes. Yes. I don't think, I know these are entertainment, it's a reality show. I don't like it when they get really personal like that and kind of, people have crutches and people have things that we're all dealing with. I don't think it's cool when they kind of attack that. I know it's television and whatnot, but yeah. So
Yeah.
hey, listen, Tim, it's a TV show. I know, but I like, I like nice a little bit, but if that means if I go on those shows, you can play nice, but you can play hard, but be nice at the same time. If that makes sense, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. Speaking of playing nice, I have to say it because I don't want to get that hat over there, but the Mets, dude, dude, I don't know. Like I read an article today that said that one of the sports writers from New York, and you know how they are, they're tough. Said that Steve Cohen has to be very, or the president of the baseball operations has to be very
Stearns.
Stearns has to be very close to blowing up the team basically and getting rid of the players. But let me ask you a question, and you are more of, believe it or not, I'm big baseball. You're more of a baseball expert than I am. What benefit does that really do? Like, so you have legitimately some star players, you have some that are maybe not gelling, but what benefit is it to just get rid of everybody? Like, I understand the trade potential and the money and whatnot, but what does that really do? Because you're basically starting from scratch, right?
Yes and no. I think in the Mets situation is a little more unique in the fact that Cohen has huge pockets, and even in a year where they're quote unquote retooling, which is this year, they have the highest payroll in the sport.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, there's really no benefit to being in the middle any year. You either want to be in the postseason, or if you're not in the postseason, you don't get, an extra draft pick because you went 80 and 82 instead of 70 and 92. You know what I mean?
But you do get
So
it if you're on the bottom, or you get
yes,
a number
and
one
and
pick.
it and if you can get future pieces for people that might not be on your roster the year after or in 2 years, it's kind of hard to say no to that unless you have a reason not to. So I think that those writers are probably writing that now for clicks because again, it's May 22nd.
Yeah.
Unless they were, 20 games under 500, you're not openly selling people off your roster today. I think
So,
that the Mets situation, just like the first 2 weeks of the season, if they turn around and win 7 to 10, there'll be people will be talking about them as buyers again. That's how quickly it changes with this era with 3 wildcard spots up for grabs. As long as you're not in the absolute bottom, you're not really out of it yet.
so this kind of takes me back to the Cubs playbook a couple of years ago when you saw Rizzo go, you saw Bryant go, you saw uh famously Baez go. And listen, the Cubs gave Baez basically to the Mets. They got Pete Crow Armstrong, and look what happened. Like what's happening.
And
And
that's a good example because Crow is cheap, controlled, and he's going to be a part of the Cubs' next 5, 6 years.
yep.
And that was a season much like the Mets are lingering right now. It could go either way. Had the Cubs not dropped a 5 of 7 right before that trade deadline, they might not have traded those players. And we might not have Pete Crow Armstrong today. We might not have Ben Brown today. Like there are a lot of good young core future Cubs that all came from that season of trading. It was a tough decision to make, and it's going to be an unpopular one amongst fans a lot of the time because you're a fan of the team. You don't want to see your Javis and your Chris Bryants and your Rizzos. And I won't even mention the guys on the Mets roster because it's something that you wouldn't want to go through. So it it's still, I think it's too early to say, like, here we're sitting today and the Mets have been struggling badly for 2 weeks, right?
Yep.
The Mets are 3.5 games out of the playoffs,
No, I understand that.
and there's
And this is
113 games left. So, like,
we've talked about this. I'm emotionally tied, not just to the team, but to some players. And I can imagine, I first of all, when the Mets gave up Pete Crow Armstrong for Javi Baez, I was one of the first fans to say no. Like I knew what Pete Crow had and I knew the potential, and I knew Javi was only going to be a rental. I mean, Lindor couldn't even convince him to stay with the team. I just
which blessing in disguise.
blessing in disguise. Absolutely, Javi Baez was a big. Mm-mm. I
You
mean, he was,
get Pete Crow was traded, already sunk costs. At least they didn't sink another 6 years into him because
and
the
I don't
Tigers
think,
are regretting that hard.
and I don't want to speak for your fan base or you or any Cubs fan, but I don't think they were emotionally as attached to Javi as they were to Rizzo. Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo. I think that hurts a bit because they were such a core to just the fandom, like the way they interacted with you guys. I even saw it as an outsider, as a Met fan, like Brizzo. Brizzo, Anthony, Brian, and Rizzo, the two pals that can't. I mean, and when they traded them, it was sad when I saw Chris Bryant in that dugout, saying goodbye. Like I was literally in Chicago at the time at the National Baseball Card Convention when that happened, and I felt for him. Like I was crying. I was upset, and I can't imagine how you felt.
Well, don't worry. There was also plenty enough big of Javi Colt in
Oh, there
Chicago.
is?
So there's
Well,
a
I will
big.
say, and I don't want wish him bad on anything, but Bryant hasn't really done anything for the Rockies, to be honest
Yeah.
with you. Anthony
He's
Rizzo, though, for the Yankees is another
yeah.
story.
Yeah,
Um,
they've all had ups and downs, but Javi's has been just statistically one of the worst hitters in the game. Bryant's been
yeah,
hurt a lot, but when he's been healthy, he's put up at least decent
such a
numbers.
nice dude. I like him. I've always liked him as a baseball player. I kind of at the time I was hoping the Mets would sign him, and we were not in that
But here's
position.
a this season's a good example right now. Who would you say right now is this year's, let's say, Pete Crow Armstrong in terms of a Mets prospect that you're very high on that absolutely positively you do not want to see go anywhere?
It's going to surprise you. I'll
Is it
say.
Acuna's cousin?
Well, Louis Angel, or I don't know how exactly, but Acuna is high up there. And I know we have a catcher already, but Kevin Parada is extremely high on my list, very high on my list. And yeah, I like that kid. Although I don't see
So
how we can keep him away
so
from you.
there's two guys where let's just say 2 weeks from now, the Mets do win 7 out of 10 or
Also, Drew
10 out of
Gilbert too. I'm very high on also.
so at only 3.5 out, theoretically, with Sanga coming back, they could be like, hey, we're in it. They
Yeah.
could end up trading for a rental player. So like that's the spot where what for the best long-term outlook of your franchise, do you want to be in the middle there and trade away some more prospects to sneak in to maybe get into that last
No,
wild
I
card?
definitely don't want us trading prospects. Definitely
So
not.
that's where it's tough to kind of be in the middle.
So, and here's the thing. This is where I get emotional. I'm starting to believe that Pete Alonso will not be a Met next year. It's just something that I feel, and I have mixed emotions about it. Partly part of me is like he's not performing, but knowing Pete's history, he goes in cycles like this. This is a normal part of who Pete is. But when Pete is hot, he is hot. Like he will hit that ball. He's not the best first baseman in the game by any stretch of the imagination. That has always been a clear fact. I even think Rizzo's a better first baseman than Pete is. But I will say that bat, when that bat is hot, that bat is hot, and you want that bat to be hot when you have three men on base and you need to get that score. You need to get that walk off in the ninth inning. You want that bat to be hot, and and I love Pete Alonso. Like that's you understand this. So it'll be hard. It'll be hard. I understand. And listen, when I hear these reports that they offered him X amount of dollars in the preseason and he didn't accept it, it kind of upset me a little bit. I was a little upset, like, Pete, what are you doing? Like, do you value, he's valuing, and he's a Scott Boras client too, right? So
Yep.
it's that overvalue, and you see what that did for all those players last season. Some of them, I don't even think all of them have been signed yet. um and look at Michael Conforto a couple of years ago with the Mets. He was injured, but he couldn't get re-signed once that was done. He was out for the whole season. So it's yeah. I mean,
So
there's a
that brings it
gamble.
full circle right there. So what in your estimation is the best like if you think today Pete Alonso is going to leave as a free agent, do you just let him walk for nothing or do you try to get something for him?
I mean,
That's
and you
those are
can
the
always,
situations that are hard that sometimes the smart decision might not be the most liked one.
you're right, and and the Mets do have options next postseason. But they haven't really struck me as being strong negotiators or getting people that they need. The last three postseasons have been atrocious, especially this last one has not been good. And in this last one had Stearns at the helm for the first time, and I was not impressed. Although we were told that we are in a season where we're just kind of refocusing and whatnot. but the choices are, yeah, you let Pete walk and maybe hope to re-sign him next year. That is a possibility, or that is never a fun part. Or you also have Juan Soto, who is already living in New York with the Yankees up, and he's already said in the past how he actually wanted to be a Met. He likes playing in the National League. He likes the Mets. I believe his brother is in the system too. So, what do you do? And how do you look at that? And Pete and Juan were both rookies in 2019, so they both kind of have. Or no, Juan was 18. Well, they both have similar tracks, and who is the better of the two? They play different positions, so that's that. But when Juan
That's
Soto was on, he was much better than Pete. I mean,
so
I'll say
that's
that.
where that's exactly where I think the Mets are in a really unique situation where
Right.
they have arguably one of the most sought after rentals this offseason because let's face it, even struggling sitting today, Alonso hit his 11th homer already. So
Yeah.
he's struggling his way to another 40 homers.
Yeah.
So he's going to get hot. So you could get a pretty good haul possibly for him and then turn around and replace him with Soto, who is probably is better. He's the better
Yeah.
hitter. So you get prospects, you get Soto. Like it's
Plus, they have options at first base. They have Vientos. They have Parada. Could probably, catchers usually can be first baseman. They have options, right?
yeah.
So it's not like they.
So that's a spot where it's almost like
I
it's
just.
tough to it's I feel your pain there because
I'm. It's a fan in me.
you
That's.
I feel it, especially with knowing all you got to do is get into. I mean, last year you have the Rangers Diamondbacks wild card World Series. So
Yeah.
if you can get in, you would probably still want to do that.
And look at the champions now, the Rangers. It's amazing how that happens. They call it the World Series hangover, right?
Yeah.
It's yeah, oof. They've had a run of bad luck though. Their pitching is like, look, they had DeGrom, they had Scherzer. Goodbye, good luck to you with that. And that was a plus, getting rid of those pitchers, because look what happened with Texas.
And they're two
So
and a half out of a playoff spot today. That's why
um,
everyone's up for grabs.
yeah.
That's nothing. There's still
Oh,
110 to 115 games left.
so yeah,
So
we shall see. We're a month out from Chicago. That'll be fun. I can't wait to see the Cubs beat the Mets at Wrigley. That'll be fun.
Well, here's a good benchmark. The Mets, as of today, are 3.5 back from the final postseason spot. Let's see where they are 1 month from today.
All right. Yeah,
Because
when we gather in Chicago, we will
because
see.
1 month from today will give them another month of evaluating. By then you're starting to get into the okay, we're about the halfway, a little further. The trade deadline's in 4 weeks. If they're within striking distance and you're going to get someone like Senga added to the rotation, which is better than any trade you can make, assuming he's healthy,
Go
all
Spark.
all they have to do is be in striking range, really. So we'll see.
We'll
And if they
see.
fall out of it, they've got some interesting trade pieces, that's for sure. You know who's going to be another sought after piece on your team is JD Martinez. He's a
Yeah,
rental.
JD. Yep.
All he's going to cost is half a season of already a pretty reasonable salary. So he could bring in a couple nice prospects. So Mets
That would be
Mets are in
good.
an
And
interesting spot where they get hot, they can be a team trading
we
for
need
a
some we
small
need some
piece.
pitching. We need pitching.
Yeah.
We need pitching. And that's always been an issue. And I think that's an
Quintana
issue
pitched
in a
well
lot of
today.
teams. For once, right? I mean, he's so he cycles. Like sometimes
Yeah.
he's really great and sometimes he's not. We have Blade Tidwell. We have some people in the minors that are really good potentials. I we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm pretty much I'm always going to root for my team. I am a diehard Mets fan. I get sad and upset, but I just wish for once that we could be in a season that's not a retooling season, because every season seems like a retooling season. And I echo the sentiments too and I live in Miami and Fort Lauderdale, Florida Marlins fans. Say Miami Marlins. See, I can never not say Florida Marlins. Miami Marlins fans, same kind of sentiment. Although I went to the game last week and it was packed. It was really interesting to see. I don't think I've ever seen that park so crowded on
What
Sundays.
percent were
So
Mets fans?
a large percent were Mets fans. There's a lot of Mets fans down here, as you can imagine. From here, there's actually a lot of Cubs fans down here too, which there's a lot of strong.
Also
It's
not
a strong
surprising.
Chicago contingent down in South Florida. By
Chicago and New York, two
Mhm.
places that have colder winters and they
Yeah.
have people down there. That's not
Although
surprising.
less now because you guys have beautiful weather. I'd much rather be walking the what do they call it, the Million Mile?
Magnificent Mile. Yeah.
Magnificent Mile. I'd rather be walking along Lake Michigan than be down here in the heat. So yeah. So I'm excited. Next week, we'll have another. We'll have a actually next week we're gonna have a special guest. So more on that next week. It's gonna be a good episode.
Looking
Uh,
forward to it.
yeah, me too. Love this person very much. So for now, you have anything else?
No, that was it's we're gonna miss Survivor, but like you said, we've got some others in the pipeline coming up. So
We have, yeah, and Big Brother's coming out, and we have Claim to Fame, and we have The Goat still on, and excited. It'll be a good
and
summer
we're
of
just a few weeks away from the boys and the bear.
yes, which we're gonna talk about.
Got some good
You
stuff
got me
coming up.
into The Bear, and I love The Boys is some of the best TV. I love that. Love it.
We were much like you were at the Marlins game the other day. We were at Wrigley over the
Yes,
weekend,
at the same time.
and there was a crazy, crazy loud ovation, and we're like, "What's going on here?" And then we turned up, and it says Wrigley Field welcomes the cast of The Bear, and
No
the whole
way.
cast was sitting in like the front row near the dugout, and the place went bananas.
That is amazing.
It was
For
very loud.
our listeners, if you don't know, if you haven't watched The Bear takes place in Chicago. Hence, yeah. Wow, that was awesome. See, I was a month too late. See,
Hey,
but I get to see
they're
Ryan
in town
Sandberg,
often, so
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So that's Around the Bases, pop culture and sports podcast. I'm Tim Sternberg with my buddy,
Charlie Seymour.
and we'll see you next week. Until then, be good to yourself and happy Memorial Day, everybody. Happy birthday, Erica. Bye.
Happy birthday.